All right, welcome back to Terra Invicta, where we've got a lot of construction going on in the background because we've unlocked Tier 3 agricultural complexes, but it's also the timing window for us to add our Coil-class battleships to the build order. We've got 228 days left on the Lancers, so I'm just going to add a couple of light coils in the form of these battleships just to give the aliens a little bit more to shoot at and also to bulk out the number of actual rounds that are heading towards the enemy. In terms of how many, I'm thinking the magic number might be something like 3 at each location. So let's add, depends on how many shipyards we have left, of course. 4 we'll do at Mercury to go along with the Lancers. Earth is going to have mostly unpowered segments left, so a lot of our shipyards are still offline, which is unfortunate. But here we go. Leo 6 has 2 shipyards free. SOC Air, Social Science Research has free, so that's 124, 50, okay, and then we have a couple for Mars. And then what we don't have is a huge amount of mission control allotment for our missile monitors, because 130 will take us to 256 on 257. We're going to produce roughly 2 or 3 mission control per month. And I've started building op centers. So we have about 30 mission control worth of op centers, which is 15 monitors worth of MC allotment coming online. But we want a little bit free so we can then expand some bases, and then at those bases, proceed to build mission control locations. So that's how we're then going to spiral the MC quickly. But first, in order to do that, we need the fleets to be able to defend it. So I might go through and see if I can find a few more places to build op centers, just so we have the capacity. Because this will take us to what? 257, 260, 290, 300 mission control by the time the ships are being constructed would be nice, because that would provide me room for a lot of missile monitors, plus the ability to then bulk out the locations that are going to provide us the MC to scale even further. We are negative on money. I'm dumping volatiles and water at the moment because we're in that upgrade cycle for agricultural complexes, which means the nanofabs aren't producing money. They're producing buildings instead. That's going to last 3 to 6 months, depending on the location, and whether I'm upgrading the nanofabs to factories at the same time. Once they do upgrade, though, our resource income for metals will go down because the nanofactories eat a lot of it, but the cash income will spike. Okay, I'm going to see if I can fit a few more op centers in, get that number into the 30s. But otherwise, we'll then cycle time until it's time to add the monitors to the shipbuilding queue, and the fleet should be arriving in about 200-something days. Well, how's that for timing? A fleet featuring triple assault carrier is now en route and will arrive in September 2034. This is a massive statement of confidence by the aliens. Because what they're saying is they think with a battleship and a crew, your space presence is so weak, puny human, that we can just pour all of these resources into slow-moving, very expensive army carriers and escort them with nothing more than a battleship and a cruiser. Now, will they change their mind when our ships start launching? Yes. But I think the plan is, given how much not trouble, we've been relatively good dealing with single assault carriers. This triple assault carrier, this ain't making it to the surface, because those assault carriers are made of sweet, sweet exotics. And I want them. Oh, also preserving human nations and all that. But mostly I want those exotics. Now, the reality is you always have to start building eventually, and we're building much later than I would like anyway. But it's always going to be a reality that even while your ships are being constructed, if you're researching quickly, you're going to be rendering them obsolete or at least obsolescent as you go. This is an example. Slush hydrogen tankage is a much better booster for Delta V. So if we go, let's leave that aside for a moment. If we go to our existing ship classes, let's have a look at the Jacana, right? So we struggle to get this thing cruise Delta V on point. If we swap out with the slush hydrogen tankage, you can see 24.6 kps versus 21. So that would allow us to get more armor or some other upgrades in. It would also mean that we'd have a utility, because I've been working on these things, the neutronium spikers, we potentially have dumped a magazine for a spiker or something else for a spiker, which increases thrust, not delta V. And now suddenly you're in a position where you could add some armor. Probably not side armor, but maybe front armor, rear armor, maybe cut some propellant, and be exactly where you were with a more efficient ship. Is it worth cancelling a construction? No. They're nice upgrades that you're going to accumulate as you go along, that you're going to integrate into future generations of ships. But if you always are waiting for just that next technology before you start building. You're never going to fight. The aliens are going to outscale you. There are 235 ships. It wasn't that long ago they were at 190. You need to fight eventually. And that means going with the right technology at the right time. This is a little late for my preference, but we're going to make the best of it. And as soon as I say that, Hydron trap unlocks, which is a good use of a tiny bit of exotics, like 0.1 exotics, because this gives a 50% boost to exhaust velocity. And that means the second generation of ships we produce after the first is going to have a lot more freedom in how they operate. Even if we don't get them another engine, which we will, huge boost. So this is an example of the kind of thing I might use exotics on. If I have a budget of between 2.5 and 5, depending on whether we go with the 10 or a 20% rule, hydrogen traps on the large ships would be a fantastic way to use that limited allotment. Okay, the monitors are now in production. I'm going with the aggro version first, which is the one without the ECM. We'll experiment with both, but I'm going with the ones that have more missiles to start with, because when the large fleets come at us in the initial phase, my goal is just to get the maximum amount of damage out there. So the Mercury aggro class is going to be dominant early, and then we'll swap over to the more balanced Mercury base model, maybe with some other upgrades, which has the advantage of that ECM protection. 136 days. The exception is the Earth shipyards, because the remaining shipyards on Earth are almost all Tier 2, at least the ones we're going to be using. They only take 90 days to put out a monitor. So we're going to be waiting another 40 or so days before we add the Earth ones. We have 164 mission control worth of ships in the pipeline. We have 27 mission control in construction, plus whatever we'll build on Earth. The United States is almost about to be tapped out. So from there on out, it is just going to be China building maybe 2 mission control a month. For this squeeze, I think we're just going to throw everything at the problem. That'll get us basically 2 MC per month out of China, which means another 6 plus 2, so another 8 Earth-based mission control. So we should scale up by 35, which should give us a little bit of wiggle room. Not a huge amount of wiggle room, but a little bit. While we're hiding below the radar, of course, Humanity First and the Resistance are not so much. But that has nothing to do with me, Mr. Alien. Nothing at all. I don't think the humans are going to be inflicting any more casualties now, though. The alien fleets are just too large relative to what the humans have. In order to get the others inflicting damage again, I'm just going to need to... Thank you, Resistance. That's happening all of the time. The thing that is keeping the servants under control despite their influence income is the chain assassinations from Humanity First and the Resistance. It is just a constant pow, pow, pow through intelligence sharing. I turn another one, I light them up, bang, bang, bang. That's basically how it's working. But yes, to get humans inflicting any damage on the aliens again, I need to thin out the fleets, which means getting my own up there. So they've done their job. Okay, it is the 4th of February, 2034. I've got a bunch of good news and some not so good news. Let's start with some good news. The tech upgrades are paying off. Victor 441 here used to be a fleet of 5 ships. It's now a fleet of 2 because it decided to bombard one of our bases on Mars. That base, notably, doesn't have any battle stations. I believe it's just a straight standard... There we are. It's just a straight standard Tier 2 with a single layered defense array. The difference from before, it now has a large surface-to-orbit ultraviolet phaser cannon, thanks to all of our upgrades. So, even our Tier 2 bases with relatively limited defenses, they got a little bit of teeth now. It's going to take a death fleet in order to pose a meaningful risk, unless the aliens want to take a bunch of casualties in return, or they want to bombard from very high altitude, which massively slows down the rate of damage. That's good news number 1. Good news number 2, there are now 195 mission control worth of ships in construction. I'm going to have to keep bumping out op centers, I think, in order to create a little bit of buffer there. But remember, we're going to have flag bridges. So there should be a 20% discount on all of that once they merge up into their final fleets. That reflects the fact that every single one of our shipyards not on series is currently in use. And everything will be launching around the same time. We're going to need them, though. Let's talk bad news. The aliens have a couple of primary fleets. Let's order by size. And it turns out, as it were, that a couple of them are heading straight for us. The largest fleet, 58 ships, 8.4 combat power. Ignore combat power, it's not the important metric. The number is in this case, is heading to Mercury and will arrive on the 6th of June. It will massively outnumber the fleet of defenders we can put together. The Martian trouble fleet of 28 ships is heading to March and will arrive sooner, 24th March. Notably, though, it will not arrive before our waves of ships complete. So we're going to be able to go basically toe-to-toe quantity-wise, a little bit disadvantaged against the Martian fleet, and then we're going to have to fight at a significant disadvantage against the Mercury fleet. There's some benefits and drawbacks here. The benefit is, looking at these fleets, I'm relatively confident that I can do terrible, terrible things to the Martian fleet at the cost of some casualties. The Mercury fleet's more difficult. I actually think the combat power strength is being undervalued here because going through the ships, there's a lot of smaller stuff that's being given relatively low combat values, but it's doing things like double packing high-tier missile modules and things like that. Because our Mercury force, because we frankly just don't have very good PD at this point, because we have no dedicated PD dreadnoughts, a lot of our strength is going to be escorts that we rush out. The militia that we rush out after our first wave of ships, we'll be able to fit a wave of militia before 6th of June, the new Minuteman class with the Hydra drive to get more missiles to the fight. They're going to just be destroyed because they have no ability to defend themselves against missiles. We don't have advanced laser engines to boost the effectiveness of our point defense lasers. And even though we've invented point defense phases, we simply do not have the time to retrofit a bunch of our vessels to actually use them. So we're going to be going into these fights with the old ARC PD laser defenses and no good laser engines. So I think what will happen is we can possibly eke out a win on Mars. The goal on Mercury, I think, is just going to have to be to hit this fleet sufficiently hard that it can't destroy all of our infrastructure. And it starts breaking off and going back for repairs and whatnot. And then has to spend long enough bombarding and potentially taking losses from the ultraviolet battle stations that we have time to get more militia and eventually shove it out of orbit. The disadvantage is this can go really, really badly, and if it goes optimally badly, we lose our 2 productive space locations. I don't think we'll lose both, but that's the risk. The advantage is taking a war of annihilation early in this sort of breakout phase, I think works in our favor, and the reason is this. The aliens don't seem to have a mission control cap that I'm aware of. They just keep scaling, keep scaling, keep scaling. We can build ships faster than the aliens can. We can scale faster than the aliens can, but we have a mission control cap. So once I build up this full allotment of ships, I'm basically stuck. I can't build more, they can. So if we just want to play, footsie and like keep a distance from each other, it's not going to work. If I can get them to bash their fleets into mine repeatedly in the inner solar system, grind them down, grind me down, and then build a new generation of ships on my side that have access to whatever new technologies I've invented in the interim, that puts us in a good spot while also getting us exotics. So ideally, we would win both of these. I don't think that's possible. But if we can smack this Mars fleet, smack this Mercury fleet pretty hard, I think it's actually better than if they were both out in the belt somewhere, saw that we built a bunch of ships, grouped up into a single death fleet, maybe joined Victor 404, which is over in Titan, and then arid us to death by joining it all together and then slamming it into one of our fleets. Because remember, we're not really mobile between Earth, Mars, and Mercury. That's the disadvantage of our new engines. We have the advantage of being able to catch them if we're engaging small groups. So, for example, there are some aliens in Earth orbit, small surveillance fleets. We will be able to smack these and then catch them. So hopefully we can get 7 kills on the board for basically free once our ships are launched, I hope, including some good stuff. Like, I wouldn't say no to slapping a 19,000-ton wet mass battleship that has a bunch of iridescent star torpedo bays that would be really dangerous in a fleet engagement. If we can smack this in a small engagement, just dogpile it with a bunch of PD and missiles of our own, I'm happy with that. So that's the advantage. The disadvantage is we just don't have the KPS to transfer between planets. Now, that said, if you go to, let's hide obsolete, if you go to something like our Pelican Block 3, and then you assume we're going to upgrade the thing, let's assume for a moment that there was some advanced, I'll leave those in for the moment, but advanced laser engines, you swap this thing out for a Hydron trap, right? Okay, and we change the visual design so that it's easier for me to tell at a glance whether I'm looking at a laser Lancer or whether I'm looking at a mag Lancer. This would make it much clearer. I should have done that from the start. It was an error. We swap these out for point defense phases. We swap these eventually out for advanced laser engines. We're starting to get to something, you know, something next level, right? We've jumped that thing to 31.7 kps by adding this Hydra trap. And that's where we're going to be spending our very limited allotment of exotics, I think. It's mostly going to be on Hydron traps, maybe some weapons, definitely not armors, definitely not radiators. Oh, and reactors. Some reactors might need it. We could easily get that up to like 33, right? 33, example transfer, Earth orbit. So you can do a Mars-Earth transfer. You can't do it quickly. It takes the better part of a year, but you can do it. If we were to try and go to Io, we can do it. The fleet would have no... This is the thing. The next phase, if we can establish control of our main holdings, Earth, Mercury, and Mars, the next challenge then would be to fight further out and secure additional resources. That traditionally means trying to break into the Jovian system. These sort of ships, properly tweaked, could potentially get there with the use of a little bit of exotics, even more propellant, and then they'd need to take an outpost kit with them so they can refuel when they get there. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We have some apocalyptic battles ahead first, but I'm just flagging that with the new technology and a couple of upgrades, it might be possible for either upgraded current ships or a new generation of ships to potentially take the fight a little bit further out in the solar system. For the moment, though, we have more immediate concerns. Oh, the aliens are definitely annoyed at, well, everything at the moment. They've just decided to randomly come up and destroy Leo 4-2, which luckily is a level 2 station that doesn't have any shipyards building active vessels. But guys, your time will come soon. Make absolutely no mistake about it. Screw you guys. And as if on cue, moments later, the first Lancers begin to launch. I'm going to have a fun time rallying all these vessels together. There is, in fact, actually, despite my best efforts, about a 4-day difference between the different waves of vessels. But that's a lot of ships. What have we got? Lancers in Earth orbit. Okay, so we've got the first 6 Lancers are finished around Earth. The first 6 Lancers around Mercury, the first 6 Lancers around Mars. I'm going to consolidate this all. And then I think we know exactly which alien group... We know exactly which alien group we might want to go after first. After all, there used to be a station there. Okay, we've grouped our first collection of Earth Lancers into a single unit. Makes sense. We're still waiting for the other ships to launch. That's a couple of days away. That said, I don't see a reason not to go chasing after Victor 181. See if they've got the guts to face us. After all, they may contain valuable exotics. Okay. Apparently they're going after one of our other locations. They'll neutralize it, but I have a feeling that before they destroy it, they're going to get intercepted. And we're going to get intercepted by a whole bunch of ship launch notifications. And when I say... There's going to be so many of those. And they're going to keep playing out over the course of hours. Let's see if we can get this intercept done first. Then I'll organize the logistics of all these vessels that are being launched. We are up to 203 mission control used, 103 still in the pipe. All right, there we go. Both fleets are apparently willing to fight, which I think is bloody stupid, but let's get to it. Now, the tactics here are going to be very simple. We have a bunch of thrust if we need it, but I don't think we're going to need it. We'll drift. I don't think we need extra velocity. And then we have 2 classes of vessel. We have 4 spinal coilers. What I'm going to do, I don't want the 960 centimeters. I don't want the big nose lasers wasting their fire on anything that's not really a problem. like incoming magnetic rounds. That's a massive, massive overkill. I'm going to put one spinal coiler on each ship that is not currently maneuvering. I'm going to put the 2 laser lancers on the stuff that is maneuvering. And of course, just like that, they start maneuvering. Good on them. We will maneuver if we have to. The question then is, at what range do our lasers start to be effective? So these guys are probably going to die because they're not maneuvering. They're heavier vessels. The question is the smaller ones. Doing some damage to the stone flower with those lasers. Speed that up. PD is mostly holding back by the threats. The cruiser is almost dead. And then once they passed us, like, I know they're trying to flank here, but we can go into a pursuit course. We have the acceleration to do it. So let's put these guys on him. Let's send them off on an intercept course. Range to the Jade River is the shortest. Is that the Jade River? It is not. So swing the Titans around. There we are. Slap. I think the distances are going to get too high now. Oh no, we might get a kill. These guys are going close. Combination of Siege Coiler Filer and 40mm should kill the Storm Tide. There you go. 40mm did it. And now I actually think, let's take these off padlock. Let's reverse course. Because let's test those engines. Because these things look big and ungainly. They actually, courtesy of those Firestar engines, they have some thrust. To the point where they can turn on a dime, they can switch up their relative velocity, and hopefully start slapping these ships again. And from that point, it was pretty easy to chase them down, grab some exotics, and now here we are in March 2034 as the fleets begin to expand. We've got monitors on the surface of Mars. We have Echo 162, soon to be Task Force Mercury, steadily accumulating, waiting for ships to be finished on the surface. And then Mars forces, we're just launching them as we go. It takes apparently 2.5 minutes to complete the launch from Mars's surface to orbit using the engines that we're using, which on the monitors is, of course, those Firestar fission lanterns. But when we start producing the escorts, they'll be using hydrogen bombs to launch from the surface of Mercury. Nothing can go wrong. So what I'm going to do is rally up these fleets. We've still got a bunch of stuff in construction, as you can see. One more day until the coil battleships and the monitors start to finish. We will let them complete, group them up, and then see what sort of forces we have to work with. Okay, so we have our fleet around Mars. 28 vessels. 4 base model Dracanas with the siege coilers. A Block 3 version, which doesn't have to have the salvage bay and can take some extra side modules instead. 1, 2, 3 Pelicans, which is our big 9.6 meter ultraviolet arc lasers. 2 coil class battleships. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 of the monitors, the Mercury Aggro class, which is the Tartarus double magazine. And then a small number, just because I could fit it into the MC cap without stressing too much, a number of Minuteman class escorts, which of course have double Tartarus, targeting computer Mark III magazine. Let's look at our intercept. Because my concern is actually, strangely enough, that Martian Trouble gets to Mars and then decides to turn around because this isn't the fight they were looking for. So I'm thinking we set something like that, and then we try and make the intercept on their arrival. Could they escape? Sure. but we should float with them and harass them. And I'm hoping that with 3.8 strength against 5.7, they'll be kind enough as to give me the fight.
We're winning their hearts and minds.
All right, we're getting very close to a Mars intercept at this point. I might have to disable new alien fleet notifications now that they're so common. Let's slow it down. Let's confirm that new trajectory because that'll follow them. Looks like we're following them to Vandenberg Station. And here we go. I see no reason not to engage. I'll check through the fleet and the targets one more time so I know what sort of ships we're dealing with. And then I think we're doing this. Here we go. And instantly, as we kick off this battle around Mars, you can see the effect the siege coilers, even fired at very long range, is happening. The aliens have come in a flat, long formation, which I imagine is a mistake they probably won't make again. They probably would have been better off in a wall formation. This protects their big magnetic accelerator cannons and their missile ships at the back, but it also means that their forward part of their formation doesn't have full PD coverage, and you can see those big, heavy magnetic projectiles coming out, just crashing through the defences they have. Already, the entire front row of alien vessels has been eliminated, and now the siege coilers are going to start working on the next row. The decision I have to make here is at what point do I decide to unleash the missile armament of the fleet? I'm content at this point because I'm only taking some magnetic fire back and my PD is mostly handling it. Just let the siege coilers do their work and then wait for the optimum moment to decide to salvo off all those shaped charge nukes. I'm also finding this practice of dubbing the audio for the battles after they've already happened to be much easier, by the way, because it means that when the battle is happening, I can focus on micro and assigning targets and things like that, and worry about the commentary after the fact, especially as battles begin to get longer. But again, you can clearly see the difference here between my small mag rounds and those big rounds from the siege coilers that just take so much alien laser fire to stop that the fleet's just not up to it at this point. Larger fleet, it'll be a different story. What we can't stop in return, of course, is the alien plasma and some of the more and more magnetic rounds that are coming back in. I'm trying to maneuver escorts when I see they're being targeted, or I'm sometimes a bit slow off the mark. But the reality is, especially as the alien formation gets closer, I love our siege coils, but their weapons are pretty impressive too. So we do lose a Minuteman right there, and I think we lose a couple more as the battle goes on. Losing ships, though, is a fairly clear indication that we are well and truly in range. So it's at this point that I go around, I start clicking through the alien formation, and assign torpedo targets. That clicking done, it's time to watch the torpedoes fly. I love the escorts and the missiles they bring to the table, even if they don't have much defensive capability. But they are a fair amount of micro in order to get right. So let's slow it right down. As the missiles start to release, you can see the distances have closed considerably. We've still got the siege coilers firing, still distracting the enemy PD. But now it's the torpedoes and those shaped charge nukes that are really going to do the damage. Or at least that's the idea. What I did here was assign a number of tubes per vessel, roughly equivalent to my estimate of how much PD it would have. So ideally what should happen is we should see a wave of torpedoes sweep through the enemy formation, basically in sequence, destroying each row of alien vessels and then punching through to the next one behind it. As you can see, their PD is working overtime, but just the sheer number of torpedoes mean it's already clear how this is going to go. Detonations on the front row as the torpedoes weave past them, and you can see interceptions, shaped charge detonations. About to lose capital here, I imagine. Bang, there it goes. As good as the siege coilers are, they can't match the one-hit lethality of a direct hit with these nukes. Row 3 about to be swept. There it is. And for row 4, it's also about to be all that she wrote. I think I make a mistake here with the targeting assignment, and one alien vessel actually doesn't get a sufficient number of torpedoes allocated to it. So we actually have a lone survivor who then gets the fantastic experience of having the entire human fleet assigned against them as primary target. And in Martian orbit, they get picked apart first by a barrage of lasers, which the armor holds up, and then some coil rounds, which the armor doesn't. RIP. And that, as they say in the classics, is that. The fight in Mercury is going to be much, much, much uglier, I think, just due to the sheer number of opponents we have and the fact our quality level won't be as high. There'll be more militia ships compared to high-quality Lancers. But that was great. A small number of Minuteman-style ships lost, a massive haul in terms of exotics. All right, I decided to give the entire Task Force Earth grouping, or at least this grouping of it, a chance to go up against Victor 366, because there are a lot of torpedoes here. They will try and run, but we'll catch them because they don't have as much acceleration. So we'll bid 10.9, and that starts the battle. The key here is we're going to need to remain grouped for the purposes of point defense. So for once, I'm actually going to go high wall, which would bring our PD even closer together. The one thing I probably shouldn't have brought is this Minuteman class escort, because if it gets targeted by torpedoes, it doesn't have any organic missile defense of its own. They are running, but all that realistically means is that they will die because we have a lot more thrust and acceleration than they do. Siege Lancers and all should be firing. The one thing we will do straight up is this maneuvering vessel will get torpedoes. The main thing is going to be who gets slapped by the torpedoes incoming from this thing. It's firing down this center line, which means it looks like it's the Henrietta. So what we're going to do is bring these ships in slightly closer. Sort of cross the beam, so to speak. Try and bring as much PD as possible closer together. And you can see what the ships are intelligently doing here is pumping a bunch of 40mm into an intercept zone. Still, that is a lot of torpedoes. All right. Everyone's point defense getting in on the action, bringing the monitor in with its 40mm. Hopefully 2 Lancers firing arc point defenses should be enough to handle the constant stream. I'm not sure how I feel about the fact that there is the big ultraviolet gun was involved. But I guess it's keeping our ships alive. You can priority target out that way, like that. And if you could throw some shells at the big boat, that would be great. And let's bring this laser boat over a little bit more. I think they're almost out of torpedoes, which would be a fantastic thing. At which point we would rotate. We would take the Merrimack off pivot. All right, that's targets destroyed. Beautiful. All right, we'll just chase down the last one, I guess. I don't think we have any torpedoes left, do we? We do, in fact, have torpedoes left. Let's take everyone off padlock. Send everyone in the general direction of the enemy. Narrow down our selections. Just make sure we don't crash anyone into each other. There you go. Oh, no, wait. The torpedoes apparently had a ridiculous amount of DV and were able to score the kill anyway. The reason I brought everyone, while it is wasteful in fuel, is I'm hoping to farm some officer promotions here, considering some of these ships would hopefully be survivable. Then what we might think about doing is who goes into refits. If we don't immediately need more ships in Earth orbit and we don't have the mission control cap for it, if the focus on quantity is currently at Mercury, refits with things like phasers, new boosters might be in order. 0.47. All right, I'll take it. No ships lost. Grand total of 2 promotions. Probably not worth it in the end to spend as much fuel as we just did. But in the circumstances, it feels good to smack 4 alien ships, including a battleship, so I will take it and the tiny amount of exotics off it. Okay, it is 1 April, and our position is basically as follows. I think we have one more alien fleet incoming to Earth, which is the assault carrier fleet, which we'll need to greet when it arrives. But for the most part, the pressure should be off the Earth fleet for the immediate future. What that means is in just a couple of days, we'll finish Advanced Laser Engine. These are utility modules that boost laser modules. And that'll give us an opportunity to design upgrade packages for a lot of our existing ships, particularly the large ones, which move towards a more phaser and modern defense package. I'm thinking, I'll show them when they come up, but I'm thinking switch over from arc laser PD to phaser PD, which still doesn't cost exotics, and adding a bunch of IR phaser batteries, which are rapid firing, longer range, not as fast firing as the PD, but they do allow the fleet to mutually support to a greater extent. We won't be able to pull the 40mm guns off existing designs. That's not a valid refit. But without going our MC cap, I basically want to use shipyard capacity to tweak our existing designs and also add a bunch of DV boosters so we have more ships with, 30-ish DV range for pursuits and potentially traveling out a little bit further, not the 21, 22 that we have now. And that's about as far as we can go with the Firestar engines on the designs that we have. So in a couple of days, we'll be able to do that refit. The big fleet battle that is incoming, obviously, is the Mercury one. With this, not that fleet, there is a massive alien fleet incoming towards Mercury. I'm going to get one round of militia ships out of the Mercury shipyards in time all these Minuteman class escorts that are going to add more missiles. But again, the goal is basically just to punch the alien fleet as hard in the face as possible, all 58 ships of it, destroy as much of that mass as we can, in the hopes that we can then grind it essentially off Mercury in combination with defense batteries and the fact that we should be continuously producing new ships. I don't think it's worth trying to send reinforcements from Earth to Mercury. I think this timeline to get the ships there is probably too long, and I'm not so confident about leaving Earth exposed. But once those ships are repaired and resupplied, we'll do the math around that potential contingency. Okay, in terms of emergency reinforcements to Mercury, because I want this initial engagement to be as painful as possible, if I'm willing to spend some of my water stockpile, I think I have a solution. And by spend some of my water stockpile, I mean spend 3,000 water just to get there with a few extra reinforcements and then another 3,000 to refuel the ships when I arrive. So we are talking about big expenditure here, like a couple of months just to pull off this maneuver. But it is possible to do an extreme range version of the Mercury class monitor. And because all I'm doing is dialing the propellant all the way up to 56, which is kind of insane, when we go to refit docked vessel, I've done that wrong. Anyway, I must have adjusted the armor too. If you have nothing except for a change in propellant, we can get the refit time down to 0 days. So if I go to Mercury class, I just go the original Mercury aggro, upgrade it, play with the armor, and get to the point where we just get this thing extra range. We should be able to refit maybe 5 or 6 extra monitors and get them to Mercury at full burn just in time to take part in whatever engagement is about to happen. Those extra missiles, that extra water spent, like the stockpile exists for a reason, and these initial engagements really matter. If you think about the chart that I was talking about again, the more losses we take early, the more we can regenerate compared to the aliens, as long as we're inflicting the losses on them so they can't take away our productive infrastructure. I'm a bit nervous about that productive infrastructure on Mercury. It's 1 battle station per location, which is not going to do well against 50 alien ships, but it might do great against 10 alien ships, for example. So this initial fight is going to matter. I'm going to play around with the refits and send what reinforcements from Earth I can, given that between the battleships and the Lancers and everything else, I think Earth is in relatively safe hands. Okay, I've done those refits. We are looking for not Echo 232. We are looking for Echo 238. Let's not hope we don't unpause. Relief Force. These guys probably won't survive. I think they know the stakes. I think they know what's up, but heroic sacrifices around Mercury have become a bit of a tradition over the course of the last couple of months. So there we are. We'll arrive on the 5th of June. The alien fleet arrives on the 6th of June. If we're willing to arrive on the 21st, we could save a huge amount of resources, but we can't. So we'll transfer those 4 monitors. And then we'll split off the Block 3 monitors here. Echo 239. This is just because they're originating from 2 different Earth shipyards. Oh, they're only going to get there on the 7th due to a difference in their orbital position. That's probably too late. And we won't get the propellant back. So that's probably about 600 water we didn't need to use in order to get some... These will now serve as basically very high KPS chase ships around Earth. So the total reinforcements we're going to get is 4 additional monitors. Does that make a difference? Does that result in more alien ships being destroyed? only time is going to tell. But they're going to burn, and they are going to burn hard with 48.4 kbs. They'll make it to Mercury in time. As for the rest, we'll see. All right, here's an example of a basic refit that we can do. This is not the laser engine one. This is going to be the Pelican Block 5. This is the flagship version because it's got both the flag and the salvage bay. In future, we might want to move the salvage bays onto the supporting battleships now that we have more of them. But for the moment, just to make sure we have the 5, I'm happy with this configuration for the moment. And I can't change the refit anyway. You can't swap this module out and still have it be a valid refit. Adding the Hydra trap for 0.1 exotics and still allows me to cut some propellant and get 27.4 kps. Much more reliable for chasing, a little bit more flexible for potential operations out of the asteroid belt. For the defenses, we get to swap in a point defense laser phaser turret, which fires more quickly and has a longer range, so much more effective. And then add this 60 centimeter IR phaser battery, which doesn't cost any exotics, fires 10 seconds, so more than three times slower than the phaser PD, but engages targets out to 600 kilometers instead. Defensive targeting range 200 kilometers. My question is whether or not that actually impacts things too much here. The other option is to go double phaser PD, like that. I think what we might end up doing is going double phaser PD on these very valuable ships, because these are more like self-defend options. And then on the laser engine boosting PD ships that we're going to build to augment them, have a mix of phaser point defenses and IR infrared phasers. Just because I don't know what this defensive targeting range 200 kilometers is. That seems shorter than the phaser, although it does obviously hit harder, which means it might engage at a longer distance. The one other thing to say is the infrared phaser will do more damage than the PD, 2.5 damage versus 5. So its effective engagement against magnetic rounds is going to be at a longer distance, or more effective. It's going to do more damage either way. But for the moment, let's go double phaser PD 40 millimeter, and then add these onto some other ships. So we'll lock that in, and we'll start doing these refits, which will also give me the visual distinctiveness of the design, so I can tell my laser lancers from my conventional lancers. So if we go ship construction, start with the ones that are around Earth, looking for Pelican Block 5 flags. These ones, that one's around Mercury, so we don't want to refit those. I want to find the ones that are around Earth. Here we are. Refit those. 55-day refit. So this is what I'm going to be doing in the background when I'm not producing new ships, which is MC constrained until we lose more around Mercury. I'll be making the most of these relatively cheap refits to get more performance and more defensive firepower into these vessels. So we're not wasting shipyard time, essentially. Meanwhile, the Academy is not fighting the aliens, but apparently they're stockpiling a fair amount of resources. They're short on, I think, water, but we're not necessarily needing to help them out there. So I can throw them a bunch of technology projects for about, a month or so, half a month's worth of income in some categories. I have gone low again because I'm upgrading some mines to the next tier on Mars and Mercury, so that'll jump up again. But for the moment, a little bit of bridging funding for stuff that doesn't cost me anything to give away. I'll take it. I'd like it if they were willing to trade their cash, because, again, I'm negative while I'm in a construction cycle, but it is what it is. I'm not entirely taking my eye off Earth, by the way. We've started to get these new administration stations finished in orbit. These things have a boost support cost, but they save us 1 MC, which is really, really good. Limit 1 per station, I believe. And also give us 12 control point cap back on Earth. So there's a little bit of a cash cost, but for -1 mission control, you can see we're starting to boost up between technologies and those towers going up, which is great. What I'm going to do in the near term is grab some small targets just from the Protectorate and the Servants, now that they're going to hate us anyway because we're shooting at the aliens. Uzbekistan is now claimed. I grabbed a really cheap technology, which means it's now claimed by Kazakhstan. So Kazakhstan can expand and consolidate Uzbekistan, because for the moment we can't go after Russia unless and until the Servants manage to grab the Executive, which would be our trigger to move, because I don't want to break the non-aggression pact with the Academy. Another vulnerable target is Ireland, which is why I'm working on public relations over there. That's 4 mission control that we could potentially grab and consolidate into the European Union. Hungary is also on the agenda. So mostly small stuff for the moment. Longer term, we have options. The big one would be, if the Executive in Russia ever falls, consolidating that into the European Union. Another possibility will be we'll keep an eye on Mexico. If it ever falls out of resistance hands, at the moment it is in resistance hands, consolidating Mexico into the USNA. also on the cards. That's 10 mission control potentially and a little bit of boost. So I'm keeping my eye out for potential territorial expansions. Even if things aren't contiguous, we can't merge them in straight away, there might be some value in claiming things the servants currently have, if we're going to be at war with them anyway, to just throw them out, use the control point cap while we have it. So things like, Iran's not incredible, but Pakistan, maybe. What's that cost? Yeah, about 40 control point cap for all 3 points in Pakistan, which would give you 8 mission control, 2.7 boost income, a little bit of research, and most importantly, not give those things to the servants along with the nuclear weapons. We could even disarm the nukes while we were there. So we have options. Shira is going to go around purging or cracking down 1 point a turn. We have 3 councillors constantly on advise, 1 in the EU, 1 in China, and 1 in the USNA. Obviously, grabbing the last China control point would be great, but it would mean the end of our non-aggression and intelligence sharing with Humanity First, which I don't think is worth 1 control point, frankly. And they're getting the benefit of all the mission control we're building. So while they're paying a really steep cost for their role in the proxy war, I think they're worth it. I think that non-aggression intelligence sharing with them is worth it compared to what they're achieving in terms of the sheer number of protectorate and servant councillors that they are burning through, and also the number of alien ships that they've shot down over the course of the game so far. It's not what we're doing, but it's something. And most importantly, it happened at the stage of the game where we couldn't control how many alien ships we were shooting down because we could only fight defensively, not offensively. So that's the Earth game for the moment as we get closer and closer to the brawl around Mercury. Swarm of new ships launching from Mercury, by the way, all blasting off with those hydrogen bomb-powered engines. This temporarily takes us right up to the mission control cap, but as soon as they consolidate with the main Task Force Mercury fleet, which has its flag bridge, it'll chop down and we'll come back under the cap again. We have so many ships in construction that we will go over, all else being equal, we will go over MC cap. I'm basically assuming that we're going to take a lot of losses in the near future, plus we're building more ground-based mission control, which, not ground-based, space-based mission control, which I don't like. It is very expensive. But for the moment, when we need the surge in the right here, right now, I think it's worth it on net. So that's what we're doing. We might go a tad over, but eventually, if we're realistic about it, there are going to be severe casualties, at which point we can start the next wave of construction, not just the next wave of refits. And as you can see, consolidating those Mercury fleets, Task Force Mercury is now made up of 48 ships, 5.5 combat power, but that's a little bit deceptive. I think the game overvalues the nuke escorts because the vast majority of the ships in the Force are these Minuteman class escorts, these absolutely cheap as chips, 1,400 tonners. They weigh basically nothing. This thing is basically like a significant part of the mass of this ship is nukes. It's got the 2 Tartarus torpedo bays, a magazine for those torpedo bays, the targeting computer to make sure they guarantee what it hits, and then the drive is hydrogen bombs. Basically. So the Tartarus nukes at 1 megaton, those will be hydrogen bombs. And then it has a magazine of hydrogen bombs to drop behind it and the pulse plate to survive the nukes being dropped behind it. So if you just physically look at this thing, crew of 29, somehow fitting into this tiny bloody little thing, surrounded by a significant proportion of nuclear weapons per mass, and armor. It does have 35 forward armor, about 1.3 meters of adamantane forward armor. But there's not much ship here. This is basically a nuclear-propelled nuclear weapon delivery system intended to make at least 1, possibly 2, but realistically probably 1 alien ship die per escort that we include in the system. It's all about overwhelming PD as quickly as possible, hence Task Force Mercury being what it is. I still don't think this is going to be enough because the alien ship is much more versatile in terms of structure, but in terms of what we were able to generate quickly and cheaply, all of these Minuteman-class escorts probably cost the same. I'd have to do the numbers, but you can fit most of these escorts into the price of like 1 or 2 of the capital ships in this fleet. But I'm hoping they're able to make that contribution, and we test that militia concept once again in defense of exactly the same place. Alien arrival, just under 1 month. I just got a notification that the aliens have sent a small force that was once risk factor 1 to Luna. They've just destroyed a resistance station there and 2 ships. So what I've done is dispatched, as you can see here, I've dispatched Echo 266, which is just the Jacana-class Lancers off from the rest of the force, to see if these guys are willing to play. They are indeed willing to fight. Remember, the Jacana does have salvage bays, We weren't able to bring a fleet bridge because we only have one not in refit, so we're temporarily over. But I figured if I sent just a small number of ships, they might be willing to fight. And it seems that I was on the money there. So we'll go short line, relatively high closing velocity. We will padlock. We've got siege lancers. We'll split the targeting. Now, the good thing here is they're not the most mobile ships in the planet. They're still going to try and flank with one ship to try and get onto our side armor. That's fine. But what I imagine should happen is there a reason we're not firing at the Opal Meteor? I want 2 ships facing up and 2 ships facing down, basically. As it is, the siege lancers are going in. Collapsing Void should be overwhelmed by the sheer amount of heavy metal coming in the front. Overconfident bastards as they are. And then what you'll see is we'll engage this guy as he comes past. Try and keep the facing right. But if he overshoots us... Oh, I should pull my radiators in. That was a mistake. Even tin droplets can be impacted. As you've seen, we've just gone red there. We should be able to repair after battle and limp home, though. That's okay. If that's the worst that happened, it's not bad. But if he overshoots us, we actually have the thrust pursue. Solid hits. In this sort of fight of attrition, I'm going to take whatever I can in terms of kills like this. I'm not going to hit the intercept course button until he comes past us. There you go, the lance. Geez, he's playing with fire here at this sort of manoeuvring range. We're going to have the 40 mils coming into play soon. There we are. Solid hit. Siege coil right through the flank. Job done. So we'll send those ships back to Earth. They can refuel and rejoin the flag fleet, so we're not over MC cap for too long. 2.7 exotics. I will take it. 2 ships destroyed. 1 battle cruiser. 1 monitor. About... If we're tracking in tons, that's 30,000 tons of alien warship destroyed. I'll take it. Vengeance for the Resistance. I'll dispatch those fleets back to Earth. This is probably the most secure location. Earth is probably the most secure of our key theaters at the moment, followed by Mars with Mercury very, very dicey. And here's the Resistance pulling the Humanity First maneuver preemptively, the bastards. We have a 70% of turning a servant councillor, which we're in the process of doing, and the Resistance apparently has a 94% chance of assassinating him, which they are also in the process of doing. Hopefully I get my refund of influence for this. I'll go upgrade that station in just a moment. And we're about to get an abort notification, I'm imagining. Yep, I'm guessing we're going to have a mission aborted. Thank you, Initiative, for stealing my research. That fleet's repairing.
Mission abort.
Mission abort. There's my refund. But we wasted a turn with Araxis. One thing I will say about council leveling at the moment is I pivoted to looking at security and espionage. Security when espionage is hopeless, espionage when it's not. The reason is, since we're about to be hostile with the servants, if they're not entirely occupied with the Resistance and Humanity First, they might take a shot at us. And I can't afford to lose these really high-value councillors. It would be a massive blow to my control point cap and to the integrity of the force as a whole. So DNA repairs to extend their life so no one dies of old age, useful. And then security score or espionage to avoid detection in the first place. So, for example, someone like Elaine here with 1 espionage, not worth leveling it. Let's go security so no one can get through it even when they spot him. Whereas someone like Toby,
prepping for mission.
Probably better to boost espionage to a reasonable level so no one can find him, and then go to ground when people spot him. Probably the better balance. Plus, as a side note, that'll make him very effective at espionage missions, which we'll need more of, so Shira isn't doing all of it herself. There's my sortie alert for Victor 427, arriving Mercury. 6 June, 58 ships, 8.4 thousand combat power, and a much more rounded force than us, with a lot of point defense, well optimized against the kind of weapons that we can bring to bear. But if we can smack a significant portion of this, I'll be happy. If we can knock out half of this with the force we have, that's probably a good exchange for humanity overall. But they're getting closer. We're about to see which way this goes. And as if it's a statement of intent, the hate bar is now fully red. What does that mean? Well, it says right here, the estimate will turn entirely red if we conclude the aliens are in a total war footing against our interests. In other words, the Hydra have decided that they're not playing around anymore. That this sort of balanced approach where the hate cap goes down, they punish us a little bit to try and get us to submit and agree, those half measures are now all done. What this means is they will now go after all of our stuff all of the time as if we are an actual military opponent. And no matter how much stuff we lose, that bar's not going down. The only way I think you can neutralize the bar once it goes to all red is if you lose everything, which is obviously completely unacceptable. So there's no more balance here. There's no more going back. We've shot them enough that they regard us as irredeemably hostile. We're aware of it through our intelligence section, which means if we're going to defend ourselves enough to extract the resources we need to build a colony ship and get out of here, we're going to need to fight for our right to do it. And that starts in just a few days around Mercury.